I think that above all, I'm a pragmatist, which is not a very sexy descriptor, but it's a practical one, which I guess is the whole point. I'm sorry that I look like the most tired man alive. It's because I am. About 2 months ago, Hank Green released a video titled "Don't Follow Your Dreams, Follow Your Tools." The general idea being that a dream is only as useful as the motivation it gives you and what it inspires you to learn. But being fixated on a dream can get in the way of opportunities that actually suit your skill set and feed you in a more holistic way. That video calcified something in me. I've long known that one of my ultimate goals of my artistic output is publishing a series of essays on theater theory, arts production, in the same vein as Peter Brook's The Empty Space. My arts production company is the Brookside Project, the project being building this body of essays informed by experiential artistic endeavors. Well, that's not entirely true. The project is me. I'm the project. But framing my work as following my tools, I figured, why wait? I have the media production skill set, I have a cinema camera, some vintage glass, and I know that down the line, I'm going to be really glad that I've written, right? And societal tools too. I considered a Substack, but exposure through video is king, consumption of art has never been more democratized, and it's easier than ever to stretch your content across multiple formats. I have all the text archived to revisit later, the videos are easy to flip into shorts, and this format is a general proving ground that I'm now using for recording more of my music, etc. I've long been a proponent of an approach I've lately been calling pragmatic artistry. Pragmatic artistry is my practice, and it's exactly what it says on the tin. Approaching your artistry with pragmatism. Take it slow, be sensible, stay in tune with what you can realistically accomplish. Follow your tools. I have some artistic peers whom I've seen spin their wheels on projects too large for them to handle, never really even starting, because the goal always exceeds their reach. Kickstarters, thousands of dollars short from being funded, films that never got off the ground because they required specific gear that was financially unattainable, or a location that wasn't feasible to book. And all of those issues would go away if from step one, you limit yourself to what is already within your grasp. Here's an example. Last year I had this small studio space in West LA that I was using to direct my indie grassroots theater projects. I had a troupe of 6 actors on deck for the first project last year, and this space was crazy intimate for like 20 audience members on folding chairs. No tech, no sound, no lights, nothing. But luckily, my theater practice is heavily informed by Jerzy Grotowski's concept of the poor theater and the impact that Grotowski had on Richard Schechner's work with the performance group in the 70s. In college and ever since, my theater passion has lied in environmental theater, that is, a theatrical event that has the audience entering and exiting a cohesive environment. So my goal was to make a performance for that small room. I'm also, as you can tell, fascinated by the philosophy behind creating art in and of itself, which brought me to Anton Chekhov's The Seagull. I love The Seagull. It's a tremendous play, and obviously, it's persisted upwards of 150 years, and it's about artists and how their artistry and fame impact their relationships with each other. It's the perfect play for a group of performers in their 20s in Los Angeles. But what I didn't have were the means to recreate 19th century Russia. I couldn't do the costumes, I couldn't do sets like that. Nearly 100% of the budget for the Brookside Project went into just the studio space itself, not to mention the fact that I only had 6 actors and the Seagull called for a dozen, but I love the spine of that play. So I adapted it. And as a side note, this is just an example. My project wasn't perfect, and the framework for this script that I wrote is way less important than the main takeaway here, which is that I had limitations, and I made a piece of art that met them. But let's go back to Grotowski. The poor theater, at its core, is a really simple concept. The rich theater you can think of as Broadway, and obviously, but it's theater as an amalgamation of multiple art forms. You have the costumes, the set design, lighting design, you have a group of musicians filling your orchestra, all of which go to support the theatrical core of the event. But what happens when you strip all of that away? What is your theater without the music, without the sweeping set pieces, without special effects? What happens when your theatrical event revolves exclusively around the relationship between your actor and your audience member? Well, 3 things happen. The first being that you save a lot of money. Second, you actually see your project come to fruition because it hasn't been stopped by what tend to be self-imposed obstacles. And third, art happens. And I learned so much. If I hadn't taken this approach, I never would have directed a play in Los Angeles within months of moving there. And as it turns out, having real clarity of vision also gets other people behind you wanting to support your project. And that's really what's beautiful. I didn't need the big budget. All I needed was the room. And I was super lucky to get the room. But I would have been just as thrilled to have had that first reading in my apartment and to perform the play in a parking lot if I had to. This pragmatic artistry most notably guided the writing of that project. It turns out it's a lot easier to write a play when you know your actors, you know their voices and their types, and you know the physical limitations of the space at your disposal. I was able to block the play basically as I wrote it. I could hear the actors' voices in the dialogue. I was seeing this thing come to life as it appeared on my page. So if you aspire to be a filmmaker, and you're desperate to make your Star Wars, if only some generous benefactor would sign over $200 million for you and your project, but all you have is your bedroom and a cell phone, here's my challenge for you. And this is really the advice of this essay. Write something that can be filmed on a cell phone in your bedroom. Seek out and draw inspiration from micro-budget projects. The Barbie movie never would have existed without Frances Ha. Now, Frances Ha had a $3 million budget, but I think you get my point. If you're driven exclusively to make your Star Wars, so much so that you never film anything because of everything between you and that opportunity, well, at the end of it all, wouldn't you have rather been a filmmaker? There's also a deeply meaningful serendipity that comes from approaching your artistry with pragmatism. I find that the fixation on the blockbuster that you'll only do once someone gives you $1 bajillion so that you can execute it exactly as it is in your mind, there's this God complex to it, this terrible belief that what's in your head is unimpeachably terrific. And it won't be, in practice. That's the truth. Don't get lost in the sauce. It's fun and it's really important to ideate, but it's easy to set yourself up for failure when you're working with a scale that can only possibly exist in your mind. Review the tools at your disposal and then use them. And also, don't be afraid to explore other mediums. If you're desperate to make that fantasy epic, why not start it as a novelization in Google Docs? I'm sure it'll make you a better writer in the process. And I say that having a screenplay in my pocket that I'm currently working on a novelization for because I know I can't make that film yet, but I'm finding the writing process incredibly fulfilling. And if you need a good example of this, Stephen Chbosky published The Perks of Being a Wallflower in 1999. He adapted the screenplay and he directed the film version 13 years later. There's a great quote from Russian composer Igor Stravinsky. He said, "The more constraints one imposes, the more one frees oneself." These Russian artists, man, they get it. It's probably because of the self-loathing. If I only dreamed at directing for a magnificent Broadway stage, I never would have seen the impact of a monologue I'd written on an audience member when it was delivered 2 feet away from them with full eye contact in my intimate studio space. If I only crafted characters from idealistic stereotypes stuck in my mind, I never would have written grounded dialogue my actors could actually live in and embrace. My production of Chekhov's Gull wasn't meant to be the best play in the country, but it was meant to be the best play for that studio. It was meant to be the best play for those actors. It was meant to be a unique, vulnerable theatrical event packaged tightly for an audience of only 1 or 2 dozen people at a time, and it was. And my directing career continued. I could do Little Shop of Horrors later. Right now, it's not in my toolkit. I'm in San Francisco now. I'm writing a lot. I'm closing in on a new album. I have my first feature film in pre-production with a financier interested. We'll see how that goes. Life has slowed down in the theater direction a little bit, so I'm following my other tools. So I'm doing this. All I want to do is create, and I hope that you create also. Look at your work with a pragmatic eye. Maybe you won't make that blockbuster yet, but there's a lot at your disposal. A lot of your ideas can be made now, and we need you to do it. Pictures.